Greetings in the name of Odu and Odudumare, all that is good and great, all that is blessed and beautiful, all that is creative and conscious, and all that is positive and possible. May all your blessings be in the night, like the night stars, and all good things be never ending. Hotep, I am Adis Olobayo Bekole, your host to Mind Vibes, Thoughts from a Curious Mind, a bi-monthly podcast series exploring and examining social phenomenons then and now. Now, in this episode of Mind Vibes, I want to deal with what has been happening, the kind of meism that we've been seeing, this idea of individual liberties when we saw with the truckers and stuff stopping everything. And I kind of call this the Noxiousness of individualism, the lack of communal courtesy. Now, before we begin, hit that like button, share, subscribe, leave a comment. Now, the Noxiousness of individualism, the lack of communal courtesy. Quote unquote, Umuntu unga muntu unga bantu. A person is not a person unless there are people. A Zulu proverb. Now, I want to deal with this because of this whole COVID-19 pandemic. And with this COVID-19 pandemic, we got a glimpse of the frailties of human behavior because of the polarization coupled with the individual freedom. We are continuing to witness a me mentality. This whole idea of, no, this is my rights and I got a right to do what I want and I don't have to do X, Y, and Z. The need to demonstrate the hostility for communal cooperation and take on this fictitious idea that the total importance of the self is at the behest of everyone else. From the first months of the virus spread, when the organizations like the CDC began to deal with the dangerous nature of the virus and making recommendations, oh man, there was quite a pushback by many individuals along with our quote-unquote then man-child president of the need to adhere to both warning and recommendations coming from these health organizations. And, you know, these were like the idiots, the QAnon, the whatever. These were those idiots that were dealing with this whole idea. Oh, no, we ain't got to do this, you know. Not dealing with, you know, the right of somebody else. You know, I remember an example where this father told his son not to go on their spring break with his friends. But no, the son said, no. When he came back, the father would not let him in the house. He told him, you know, you got to stay with your friends. Right? Because, you know, he had a grandmother in that house. And his father said, no, you're not going to put her life in jeopardy. Instead, what occurred was this machoism, along with the toxic individualism that permeated the discourse. Individuals who dealt with the notion that they need not abide by the recommendations, nor, when the vaccines became available, that they need not submit themselves to taking this medication. Now, I am the first to understand legitimate concerns when it comes to having a real question about the efficacy of a particular vaccine or medicine, particularly ones that just seem to pop out of nowhere. You know, my queen is very, very much, you know, hey, you know, vaccines, you know, we got to keep our eye on that. And I understand also from the African American perspective because of what the government has done to us. So that's why I understand the suspicious nature about the government's role, given that the government has and continues to hide pertinent information from its citizens. Those are legitimate questions and conversations to be had. However, faced with a deadly virus that has taken almost millions of lives in a span of a year, that should be alarming to and for everyone. Yet, there seems to be this need for some reason to believe that a particular condition will not strike you. That's always the case, particularly with the youth. No, that ain't going to happen to us. That's not going to happen to me. But further, the idea that as Americans, we have the sole right to our so-called individual freedom and liberty. That's kind of a trick bag that we got ourselves in, particularly with the Constitution dealing with individual liberty. That above all else, that reigns supreme, irregardless of the general populace of the country. There's this idea that me. I have control of what I take in my body and what I do to my body. But hey, when you go into that car, you don't have that control of not putting your seatbelt on. Now, don't get me wrong. When it came out, man, there was a lot of fervor against that. But hey, there are other people on the road besides you. Because of this thinking, we saw countless activities, particularly with the far-right extremists, to defy the recommendations, even to the point of plotting to kidnap the Michigan governor. That's what they did, because she was following the CD recommendation that you have to wear a mask and stuff. This was before the vaccines came out, that you have to wear a mask and stuff. That's what, but they said no, and they stormed these capitals and stuff. Just idiots, just plain idiots. And this also happened with the man-child, who was our president, unfortunately, with the man-child's encouragement. These individuals went out of their way to obstruct and prevent these life-saving recommendations. I remember when the man-child, he caught it, and he was at Walter Reed, and they were giving him all kinds of drugs and stuff. So he comes back, and he goes to the White House, stands up on the stoop, breathing all hard. He's breathing all hard, and he takes off his mask because he didn't want to be seen with the mask, because that made him feel inadequate. Recently, the idiot governor in Florida went berserk on a group of high school kids. High school kids for wearing masks. Because, like the man-child, he didn't feel it was a good look, especially for him. What an ass bucket. Yet, the vaccines and mask mandates are not the only victims to this obnoxious behavior. Though we have seen people doing things that they would not ordinarily do. Unfortunately, most often they would do them on airplanes in midair, causing many flights to have to land prematurely. And then those stewardess, those flight attendees and pilots, hey, they ain't got to take that stuff. I saw these two women. Unfortunately, they were black. I saw them. They're coming up to Texas. Came from Texas, come to New York. They go to this restaurant, and all the maitre d' was doing is doing her job, saying, "Hey, you can't come in." And they start getting into grabbing this poor maitre d' for doing her job. I mean, what kind of nonsense? I mean, that was just idiotic. But that's the atmosphere that not only the man-child promoted, that has been created. But this behavior, as I said, is extended to our school boards. Take the recent Virginia elections. The gains made by many people were wiped away because of the loud and vocalized crazed people dealing with the fictitious teaching of a quote-unquote theory known as critical race theory, which most people never heard of and don't even know about or what it's about. Yet, this rabid hysteria has driven many citizens, again, many on the right, to become belligerent, hostile, and downright obtrusive, eroding any sense of civility. Even our political discourse has become so tainted that our government has been unable to function in the norms of civility. The polarizations within our body politics have become so toxic that I think that many don't feel the need to wake up in the morning. I mean, how do you do that? You got this young, beautiful, intelligent mind from the Bronx, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. What would possess a grown man like, what's his name, Gosard, I think, to paint a picture with her, with a, target or something, or something of that nature? What would make a grown man to do that to, at least, dealing with his age, she is but a child to him. But yet, he did that. I mean that's beyond being obnoxious. That's being dangerous. It's being what we would tend to call abusive. That is psychologically abusive. You were trying to terrorize that beautiful young Puerto Rican, and I say that because she is, a very brilliant mind, right? But you wanted to terrorize her. For what? You see, there was a time that we were able to agree to disagree and still walk away with the understanding that we can come back another day. While taking a drum workshop with master drummer Olatunji Babatunde, he once remarked, there is no problem in his village. The time when problems arise is when communication stops. Now, although Europeans have never showed any deference or desire for communication, especially when it comes to listening to black and other browns, other people of color, however, there was a time, particularly from the 1940s to 2000, that there was at least a semblance of communal courtesy, where there was the idea that we are, quote-unquote, American, particularly when it came to the USSR. We rally around, rally around the old, tree with the yellow ribbon and stuff, because we're Americans and those are Ruskies. They're the enemy. But today, there are loud voices within the far right circle that seems to be a mouthpiece of President Putin's hostile invasion of Ukraine, and not the rally around the U.S. flag and come together against an enemy. What we are seeing today is an extreme shift in our reasonableness towards one another. Even with our strained relationship with white America, there was a recognition that being civil, being polite, it's just human, it's just right. How and when did we become a society of Noxiousness, of individualism? The pushing aside communalism at the behest of individualism, where the self-importance becomes the overriding need of the individual. A steady barrage of toxic meism that somehow has permeated all sectors of our society to the point of belligerent activity that we cannot possibly survive in this atmosphere. If we continue down this obnoxious road, we will soon find ourselves acting less than animals, than how animals act towards each other, and become what a famous French philosopher once said: the more civilized man becomes, the more barbaric he is. This is what we must not fall into, lest we become a world where we no longer are the highest being of that world. And again, in my vibe segment of the toxicity of white patriarchy, if we do not begin to realize who we are and where we are and what we are doing to ourselves, we don't have to worry about Martians or anything coming to our destruction. We'll do that all on our own. And is that what we want to do? That's the question. Again, thank you for dealing with this episode of Mind Vibes. Again, hit the like button, share, like, subscribe, leave a comment. But until next time, this is the Diesel Biobank saying, may we all strive to bend the arc of justice towards humanity and believe that peace and love can be achieved. Madasi P.